This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
We can start. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to open up the Southampton Planning Board meeting for Wednesday, April 5th. All our members are present tonight. And I'd also like to introduce our board consultant, Richard Harris, who is the former town planner for the town of South Hadley. Our first order of business tonight is a subdivision preliminary application by New City Properties, LLC, Northampton, for property located on College Highway, map 19, parcel 141, and Lynn Drive, map 24, parcel 15, for 40 two-bedroom single-family units. 4 units will be dedicated to affordable housing. Before I ask Heritage Surveys Mark Reed to present on behalf of the developers, I would like Richard Harris here just to define that the only thing we will be reviewing this evening are maps S1 and L3. The other 3 sheets of the plan that we received are not relevant to the review tonight. They could be relevant on another occasion down the road. So I'd like you just to elaborate, Richard, just a bit on that.
Let me correct myself. I said S1, it should also be L1 as well. That's existing conditions. What has been submitted to the planning board is an application for a preliminary subdivision plan. The application refers to creation of a new road as well as 2 big parcels. But that information is depicted on sheets S1.0, L1.0, and 3.0. What's depicted on the other sheets are information related to potential residential development of one of those big parcels that would be subject potentially to a further hearing or further meetings at a future date.
At this time, Mark, are you going to present?
Sure.
Mark Reed from Heritage Engineering and Surveys.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Mark Reed from Heritage Land Surveying and Engineering. Here tonight is Bob Cannon and Todd Barron, who are the applicants for this particular project. I just wanted to go through an orientation of where this piece of property is. The property in itself is 44.9 acres of land located on the southeast corner of College Highway. College Highway running in here. For reference, the Dunkin' Donuts and Paisanos building is in here, and Cumberland Farms is here. Park Place is here. The property runs along the northeast side. The major abutter is the Fowles, and I'm not sorry, not Fowles. Yeah, formerly Fowles Farm, but Fletcher Farm. The newly acquired rail trail corridor is located to this side, and residential housing relative to the Lynn Drive section. There's a cul-de-sac that comes down from College Highway in itself. As Richard mentioned, we are here seeking a preliminary subdivision plan for an 820-foot long cul-de-sac, which will serve 2 lots. And it is shown on sheet L 3.0. So the same orientation as the previous plan, but on a larger scale. Park Place here. Cumberland Farms is here. College Highway running here, and the future rail trail is running on that side, and the Fletcher Farm to the north of it. This plan shows that the cul-de-sac, like I mentioned, is 820 feet from the sideline of Route 10, College Highway, to the center line of the cul-de-sac. It will come in, and as a cul-de-sac in this area, which is larger than the minimum standard of the town's regulations under subdivision, there'll be 2 lots that would be served by this cul-de-sac road. Parcel 5, which is a 5.35 acre parcel, which is here, and parcel 6, which is a larger piece, which is 32.99 acres of land. There are 4 potential commercial lots shown on the plan. They all have frontage and area to satisfy the zoning, so that these lots are part of the overall picture. The zone line between the commercial and residential is 300 feet back from College Highway. So these are all commercial village, and the remaining land is in RV district. So, the pavement width will be 26 feet in width. We're proposing a sidewalk connecting to the existing crosswalk with the flashing yellow signs on it, which is located right here, which is very close to the corner of the property of this first commercial lot. A new sidewalk coming along the edge of College Highway in front of these 2 commercial lots and running down the cul-de-sac. Stormwater will be collected from the roadway and brought back to the rear section of the property and be designed in a stormwater system in the rear of the property itself.
Yep, I see that.
We've also, this plan shows a potential use of easements shown here that run behind the commercial lots. We envision that when these commercial lots get developed, the driveways would be, and parking areas would be behind the buildings, so that for all this project, you'll only have 1 curb cut coming up out into College Highway, so prevents a lot more curb cuts coming off, 4 less curb cuts off of those properties. The distance from Park Place to the proposed roadway is 445 feet. In length, so there's good distance, and I have some pictures that I'd like to give to the board to take a look at the site. Because we are on a curve, we were concerned about the site visibility. And I've got a set of, I can share these so I can describe what those 3 pictures are.
The picture in my head, I think I've driven by it 1,000 times.
So the first picture is if you were standing on College Highway looking at the property, that would be the approximate location of the proposed cul-de-sac road. The other picture
It's that one's one.
is that one, yep, with the trees,
The posted signs.
Yeah, and the posted sign. Yeah. This picture is the view looking to the northeast towards Gun Road. And the last picture is looking back towards Cumberland Farms and Paisanos area. So as you can see by these pictures, there's a very long sight distance. That's one of the reasons we chose to move the roadway down in this location, because it really gives you the optimal site visibility both directions for exiting or entering the site in itself. So as I mentioned, we're hopeful that these commercial lots would be serviced off of the back through easements. This is not going to be town roadway. That'd be part of the easement on these individual lots themselves. The only town way we're asking for is the cul-de-sac.
Does it connect with Lynn Drive?
We do, in the fact that we got, a request was made for a gated emergency access to Lynn Drive. We're gonna have to loop the water line through the project.
Who made the request?
So it was in conjunction with when we met with the health department. They felt for safety reasons, it would be a good idea to have a gated emergency access to Lynn Drive. So we're proposing that because we're gonna have to loop the water main. Because you just can't come in and loop it back out to the same spot.
So it doesn't connect with Lynn Drive, it's just for the water main, it's not a road?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. But the water line would physically connect to the existing water system in Lynn Drive.
So all traffic from this whole development, commercial village as well as the residential village, would be coming off of that new street with the cul-de-sac.
Correct. Correct, yep. So all the traffic would enter the new cul-de-sac roadway and exit at one spot.
Just to clarify, there would be a driveway built for the emergency access, right?
Yes, it would be a gravel driveway.
Okay, just,
Probably, I assume it would be gated too?
Yes, and locked. And the fire and police department would have a key. Because you can see Lynn Drive is quite a long cul-de-sac in itself. So, God forbid everything ever happens, this is blocked, they can get in from two different ways.
Who's going to plow it if you have a snowstorm on the night of a big fire?
Yeah, so the association, whatever the entities are owning this, there's going to maintain that. As is the stormwater system, which is typical with any subdivision in Southampton.
Anything else, Mark?
No, I think that's it.
Questions from the board? Any more questions at this time?
I have a question. What is our responsibility tonight? Are we saying we in agreement or disagree with the proposal?
Yeah, we vote in favor or against the preliminary subdivision plan in the end, the concept of it, yeah.
And then from the next step, definitive subdivision plans would be developed showing all the construction-related details and photo design, so we'll be back before the planning board again for a definitive subdivision
and
plan.
Paul, if I can just elaborate on that,
Yep.
just so everybody's aware, the next step with the definitive, as Mark indicated, is submitting detailed plans and construction plans for the infrastructure, and that would require a public hearing, notification of abutters, advertisement, those various steps that associated with it. The board tonight needs to approve or deny the preliminary, and they can approve it with conditions, which standard conditions in many places are, you have comments from the DPW director, that those be addressed, and any other details that they feel should be addressed.
Cindy, did
Most
you?
likely, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, go.
Most likely, the development of either one of these lots would require a stormwater permit from the planning board also, because you're going to be disturbing over an acre of land.
Okay.
So
So I see in our packet some emails from our DPW.
Yeah, I was going to
person,
allude to
Randall.
those in a minute.
Okay.
I'll read them into
And,
the record.
well, my question is, I see those, and I also see from the health director some correspondence. So what other town entities, specifically the water department, have they keyed in on this? I do remember that this may be over the Barnes Aquifer. Is this correct?
Yes, it is. So the water department was provided with this set of plans. So I don't know if they've sent comments in or not.
I have not heard from, I heard from Health and the Highway Department. I did not hear from Water, Police, or Fire. So evidently, I'm assuming they had no concerns.
And their major concerns would be addressed in the next submission.
But I think the main thing with water, outside of what you just mentioned, the aquifer, was the looping is what they're really interested in on subdivisions, if it's at all possible.
Right, hydrant locations,
Right.
fire department.
I have, I'd like you to clarify a little bit more of this behind the building parking. I can't seem to wrap my head around it. I know you've got an easement there, and it's going to be twofold, I believe. It's going to be not only for the employees, but are there going to be parking spaces back there for whoever is going to be patronizing those units?
Yeah, so, I mean, right now, there is no interest in anyone to build on these lots. But in a lot of communities, they're encouraging that the buildings be closer to the street and parking lots be behind it, so you don't see from the streetscape parking lots and cars parked. So that's the purpose of this easement.
How wide is that, Mark?
So, excuse me, that pavement width would probably be 24 feet, enough for two-way traffic.
So if you got two-way traffic in there, where is someone going to park? Is there still,
On the individual lots, Paul.
I get you, okay, all right.
On the individual lots.
So that's not a total build-out, then, those lots?
No, it's not,
All right.
because we don't know if a office building's gonna go in there or a,
All right, thank you, no, that does it, yeah, right, thank you.
I have a couple of questions, and they might have been answered somewhere else, or I missed them, but at one point I was reading an email, and you were looking for a waiver on the sidewalk, and it seems like now you're talking about the sidewalk, so.
yeah, so we're requesting a waiver of sidewalks on both sides.
On both sides,
Right,
okay, that's.
So we
what
are
it is.
putting a sidewalk on one side.
Yep.
But we request a waiver for both sides, which is in your
Okay.
zoning subdivision.
Now I understand. That was.
But that comes with a caveat that you payment in lieu of if we waive it, correct?
Yep. Through the definitive.
Well, right, but that's not something we decide on tonight.
Right, but I mean, that's the deal where if we waive it, there is a payment in lieu of.
What I'd suggest is if you don't decide that tonight, your decision tonight would be to indicate that you have not acted on the waiver, but may consider that in the definitive plan stage.
Another question I have is, when you give us further plans and this proposal, will it be an estimate of how much traffic will be entering and exiting College Highway?
Well, for right now, we don't have a full handle on how much the total traffic is going to be.
That's not until the definitive anyway.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking, if they, when they get to that point.
So we don't have a full,
Yep.
we don't have a full build out of the entire piece, so it's hard to estimate how many trips per day.
Yeah.
But that's, again, that is
Yeah, I'm just, this process will be a multi-meeting,
correct.
so I'm just trying to identify things that I'll be looking for
Sure.
future meetings. And the last one is, in which order, I know you identify there's some affordable housing that's going to be built. In which order will those be built? Will those be the first units that are assigned or the last units that are assigned? Have you thought,
Well,
have you ordered them at all?
It all depends on the permitting process we still have to go through. But to my knowledge, it has to be concurrent with other construction.
So if you built 9, the 10th one would have to be,
Affordable.
okay?
Well, the 11th. So you build, or 9, yeah, you might be right.
9,
9 and the 10th has to be
Okay,
affordable.
I just want to make sure it wasn't like you built 40 and then
No.
4.
No.
Yeah, okay.
So you've made the point that we're not, we're just looking at the proposed
Definitive plan,
definitive
proposed preliminary plan.
On the other hand, I think we have to consider what will be put there, and I am on the Public Safety Building Committee, and I am aware that some portion of this lot is under consideration as one of the properties for the proposed public safety building. It's definitely not, anything's determined yet, but I think it's important that we note this, because that might change things in terms of lots of stuff.
But you don't know what's going to be proposed.
Right.
And that's, therefore, all you have before you is a preliminary plan to create a road and create 2 parcels that may be developed in a variety of ways down the road.
And it wouldn't change our consideration of
No.
anything at this point?
No.
Okay.
Because at this point in time, what you're basically looking at is, do they conform to the zoning? And do they conform to the standards set forth for a preliminary subdivision plan?
Okay. And you, as our consultant, believes it does conform to the zoning?
Yes. The lots are big enough, they meet, as they've laid them out, the roadway would provide the frontage for the 2 parcels they're proposing, more than sufficient. So yes.
I want to read into the record communication I had from the Highway Department, and I copied Mark on these, but I'll make just official in the record. He was just also asking about interpreting the plans and layouts, and I think that's been covered here. Will the association or some other governing body be responsible for maintaining the roadways and sidewalks as they do at Pomeroy Village? And I believe that would be under our advisement. The association or some other governing body is responsible for operations and maintenance of the stormwater management system. And they should account for stormwater generated from the highest, most intense possible use of parcel labeled for future development. And also, Randall would like the opportunity to review and comment upon all the following documents prior to the approval of the protective covenants, HOA, et cetera. But that's down the road. That's not part of this process here tonight. And then the other communication was from the Board of Health. The request to have only one 5-foot sidewalk appears reasonable, given the amount of projected foot traffic and bicycles expected. Discharge of any and all stormwater must not be added to the drainage system on College Highway. The on-lot sewage systems will be reviewed by the Health Department on a case-by-case basis. The storage and removal of waste and trash will be taken up on a case-by-case basis. And as this subdivision is connected to the proposed bike path, consideration should be taken concerning any increase in bicycle traffic, maybe signage to direct people. And again, a lot of these items here are the definitive down the road. We had a list that was developed here by Mr. Harris about the plan required contents. I don't know if I copied you on that, Mark, did I? No. Let me give you a copy then.
Thank you.
You want to go over those, Richard, or would you like me to? You just,
You're doing very well.
what, reading? Everything seems to be in order, except there is one subdivision name, sheet L3, Parsons Village, on sheets L4 and L41. There was no name on Preliminary plan is not included, rather proposed subdivision plan on section 4.2.3.1. The names and addresses of the applicant was kind of a question mark, the developers on sheet L3.
Yeah, the developers.
Right, Mr. Labrie is.
Verify that.
Yeah, Mr. Labrie is not the developer, correct?
Correct. Bob and Todd have a
New City.
agreement for purchase of the lot.
I assume the developer is New City Development.
New City
Yeah,
Properties?
I'm sorry, yeah,
Yes.
City Development.
So they should be listed their address as,
I'm sorry?
but they're the developers. It asks for the applicants, who are the actual applicants for this.
Yeah, the reason that we have legal listed Jim Labrie as Jim and Eugene Labrie as well, because technically we don't own the property yet. So our understanding was that we had it listed.
You got to get your permits first, Craig. You get your permits before you are the owner.
Makes sense to do it that way.
And just clarify about wording about preliminary plan on sheet 3.0.
Yep.
When it says subdivision plan, that could be definitive preliminary, just saying preliminary just makes it very clear that it's only a preliminary.
Yep.
On the second, page 2, proposed method of sanitary sewage disposal and system and water distribution system, including general soils information in a general manner.
So,
I would just list on sheet 3.0 that you're proposing a on-site septic system,
okay.
or however it's going to be developed,
Right.
because there's no other option there.
And then finally here, widths of adjacent street.
Yeah, I didn't see that listed shown on there. I saw the street names and locations, but not the widths.
Oh, okay, the College Highway.
And Lynn Drive, yeah.
Yeah, it's a big paved cul-de-sac right now, and this
Right.
entire area is paved, but we'll get back here.
We don't have to decide on that sidewalk tonight.
No, you don't.
You want your overall comments in there, or what?
Yeah, I can go
Go ahead.
with those. I mentioned overall comments. The submittal appears to combine the concept plan prepared for a residential development with a preliminary plan. Before, as you note already, before the board is only the preliminary plan at this point in time. The note on sheet L3.0, right in the middle of it, regarding section 11-E of the zoning bylaw, I think we all agree that there is some difficulty in the organization wording in the zoning bylaw, but it currently seems to reference planned unit development or planned industrial development as opposed to a proposed cluster residential development. I would suggest that that middle note could be reworded to say that a cluster residential development of detached single-family residential is proposed in accordance with section 11 of the zoning bylaw, and just leave, not go into A, B, C, whatever, just section 11. That makes it clear. I had suggested that the waiver on sidewalk is not appropriate this time, should be cautious because the number of units may impact it. But as we noted earlier, it does need to be acted upon, and the board could act upon at the definitive plan where you have the detailed engineering at that time. So,
At this time, I'm going to ask I'm sorry? At this time, I'm going to ask anybody from the public here that would like to speak or make a comment on the proposed preliminary subdivision.
I have a question.
Yes, sir. Just come up to the podium and just state your name and
Fletcher, Gun Road. Looking at everything we talked about tonight, the 4 commercial lots up front and this development, how much water is the stormwater collection going to hold?
So it will hold between the pre and the post, the 100-year storm event. So that,
A statistic I heard in 2020, that between 2010 and 2020, there was 26 100-year storm events, 10 years. So I see all that asphalt, and depending on what we get for roof runoff, I'm wondering what happens if we get a multiple storm event? Does it have the capacity to hold it?
and again, that design of the whole stormwater system is done during the definitive subdivision plan submission, but it will be designed to handle the storms.
When we spoke the other night, there was a question about how much sewage could be put into the ground, and of course, did I hear 8,000 gallons a week? Was that what?
It's 10,000 gallons a day.
A day.
10,000 gallons a day. So if we have this parcel that was not discussed tonight, but it's zoned residential in the back, once this is done, does that mean that now there's a line drawn? So if they want to develop this piece that's undeveloped now, does that become a separate piece all to itself so that they have their own set of rules for what they can plug into the ground? So basically, like I said the other night, you came with a preliminary plan, it got denied, so now you've shortened it, shrunk it, but now you have a piece of undevelopable land that could be somebody else's to develop, and as long as they stay under what their development is going to plug into the ground, and you stay under what you're going to plug into the ground, even though it exceeds it, because you're two separate entities, am I correct in that?
Yeah, that's Board of Health issue for that.
But
and Paul read that.
So it could still be approved that way, am I right? And here's my reason for asking this. This goes back to the other night, but there were 3 zoning changes on Gun Road Extension. They were because of stormwater runoff. They built multi-family units. Separate, none of them met the stormwater runoff requirements by the state. So they all got a variance. But when you give all 3 a variance, now the 3 of them together have well exceeded what the stormwater runoff is in a small area. And I'm the guy that got it. So I'm asking if they shrunk theirs down from the original plan, and there's going to be a dividing line, now you're going to allow the other side of this property to be developed, and so the 2 of them together will exceed what you can put into the ground for sewage in the course of a day, but because they're separate, it's fair. Am I right on that?
Well, I'm not up on Board of Health regs, but I can tell you that when the definitive plan comes down the road and the stormwater management program is put in, the applicant, they design it on their plan, but then we have an independent reviewer come in and look over their plan to ensure that the specifications meet all these concerns that you might have when it comes to stormwater. As for sewage, I can't answer that.
That's kind of what it seems like to me, though, that if you have a dividing line and you have 2 separate projects, even though together as one, they exceed this, but if you split them in half and let developer A build over here and developer B, legally, I guess it sounds like they're 2 separate developments, but as one, they exceed either stormwater runoff or sewage infiltration. It was, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I don't have all the rules, but
I know that.
I'd suggest you,
my other question is, when I saw the original plan on this, at the end of Lynn Drive, there were some lots there, I don't know how many, that said lots, approval not needed. And so, does that also mean that they can do whatever they want on those lots if approval doesn't need to be needed? Is that part of their development, or is this part of undevelopable piece? And so if things aren't needed, that also stretches your stormwater and your septic.
So The way I understand it is, from a definitive site plan approval, this is where they're going to identify, they have a footprint that they identified that's going to be developed under their future plans.
Correct.
At this point, they haven't defined any particular development plans, nor have they identified, I guess that's the big thing, they haven't identified any future plans. So this area that's delineated here is the area they're going to provide further, they're going to give us a study that's going to be basically looking at the entire footprint that they're outlining here tonight, that's going to identify what they're going to provide for both septic, for stormwater.
And chances are, they will meet those requirements, which is fine. But then you have an unknown on the other side, and everybody says, well, we don't really know. This is up to...
What's the unknown on the other side?
You have a piece of residential, an open...
Do you want to point out to that?
It's over in where the cul-de-sac is.
Why don't you come up and point to it?
Okay, this down here is not slated for anything right now, same as the 4 lots up front.
But that's in their study, but that's within their definitive, that's going to be part of their definitive site plan.
No, that's,
That area's not?
I think this one is talking about this property right here,
Maybe I'll work at the same map up here, so we can see.
which is not part of the project. This being, it's existing tract apparently that's going to be left out.
What, the one
But-
that says RV?
Yeah, this right here. But if I can,
Can you clarify which section?
Yeah, can you come up and do it at this map, Richard?
That's not going to be developed over
It's on the other
there.
side of the tracks.
It's not going to be developed.
Yes.
That's going to remain open.
I understand this one. I'm not talking about, is this one he's talking about?
Undevelopable land. Okay, all of this back here, right, okay, is not slated for development yet. Right. And so, that's the question.
I'll identify myself. This is Chris Grant, 25 Double Drive, right? Is whatever that's planned to be put in here going to derate that other property, or does that get a completely separate rating that in combination will exceed what this would exceed for a single piece of land? Are you going to derate that other property as a deed restriction or something else that says they got 8,000 of the 10,000, you can only do 2,000 on that property, even though it's not part of their development, it could be part of a future development?
So are we talking about parcel 5 here? Is that the?
Yeah.
So parcel 5, that's not part of this?
And it's,
Well, it is part of this application relative to the preliminary subdivision plan.
Right.
So what the board is looking at is a cul-de-sac that would serve parcel 5 and 6.
But I guess my point is, we're just focused tonight on the cul-de-sac that has all these abutting parcels that are going to be accessed by that. And then when you come back for definitive, you're going to address the disposition of that parcel at that particular time. And that's going to be addressed at the definitive.
And I would also offer this, if let's say parcel 6, you get the definitive, you build the cul-de-sac, parcel 6 comes in with a development plan, I would expect the permanent entity to say, all right, provide the stormwater calculations indicating sufficient, that what you've built as part of the definitive is sufficient for parcel 6. You've come in parcel 5, provide stormwater calculations and report that demonstrates that what was built for the definitive plan is sufficient for 5, based on what's already been done to number 6, and if it's not, then how are you going to ensure that the stormwater is being met? That's the standard approach on a phased development of this nature. I've done it a number of times.
That's our understanding.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Stephen Johnson, 20 Walcott Road, and a candidate for the planning board. You presented quite a lot of information in your filing, and is it my understanding that all of this property is still under one ownership and you're the prospective buyers of a portion?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, great. So that's the facts. And this conversation has been really helpful in identifying what's pertinent to preliminary approval of a subdivision. I hear our neighbors raising concerns about cumulative impacts, if you can lump Project A plus Project B and all of its attendant impacts. What I would ask is, in light of your detailed thinking about the property, what is the scope of permits that you would anticipate applying for, and specifically identify state permits or state financing?
Sure. So there's local approval from the planning board and the definitive subdivision plan, and a stormwater permit for whatever gets developed on this piece of property, if you exceed over 40,000 square feet of land disturbance. So that trips that stormwater permit from the planning board. Okay, so that's local permit. Local permit. Yep. Yep. The other permit would be if there was any development of the 5 or any of the other lots here, you may require a zoning board of appeals permit. And that would be something that would be, no, it's special permit. A special permit. No variance is required. The other is because College Highway is a state highway, we have to get a curb cut permit from Mass DOT for the roadway itself. So those are the...
You mentioned the conservation situation and the wetlands.
Sure, yeah, so this property was looked at relative to any wetlands on it. There is a small area of wetlands, I'll come over on this side. Over in this section of the property. So there is a small area there. Being 35 acres or 34 acres, we don't see any jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission for this area down in here. We'll be well outside the 100-foot buffer zone.
The point I was getting at is, do you anticipate that with the state permit, you'll be filing with MEPA, Massachusetts Environmental Protection Act, which specifically looks at cumulative impacts, and because the property is under one ownership, would give consideration to the entire anticipated development?
We don't anticipate hitting those thresholds with the projects. But again, trying to, get through certain steps that we have to go through.
Yes, sir.
I guess I got 2 concerns. I'll do them in reverse order since we're talking about water, right? So I'm on 25 Helen Drive. There's already a stormwater easement, which I believe is from Lynn Drive, that comes into the corner of my property here. It dumps a lot of water here. My leach field is literally right there. Okay. We're going to be proposed, I know it's not necessarily exactly on this plan, right, but the water's going back here, right? I had my septic tank pumped today, had one of the local guys do it. He said, you have no idea how that's going to affect the water back there if it's going to impact your leach field. So, he said, pay attention, there might be a concern, and it might not impact it on day 1. It might not impact it on year 5. 8 years down the road, after we've dumped water there for 8 years, I don't want to be on the hook for a failed septic system because of this development. So that's number 1. Number 2, I don't want to call you a liar, we had a lot more discussion about traffic on Monday night. You had trip estimates. You told them
You
did
had
not.
what? I didn't hear that.
Trip estimates.
Trip estimates.
You told them you did not.
Right now, we don't have a full build-up, so I can't tell you.
So did you tell them incorrect information Monday, or are you telling them incorrect information tonight?
Application altogether.
Yeah, it's not pertinent to what we're talking about tonight here.
Okay.
Anyone else with comments or concerns, questions? Any other questions, board?
I want to be clear about this. So the concerns I'm hearing from the people have to do with stormwater and runoff and, septic systems getting overloaded, et cetera. And if we were to agree to this tonight as a planning board, based on just the footage and the, that aspect of it, not the definitive development plan, what would we be doing there if, in fact, these other things are not resolved, or at least they're coming up as concerns of the neighbors?
Well, the way I see it, we approve the cul-de-sac, and then it devolves upon the applicant then to do their homework with Board of Health and especially Board of Health, I guess, if the number of units, how much it's going to, withstand on that property. And that's, we can only go by their expertise and what they recommend. I can't refute them unless we want to get an independent person to come in to oversee and comment on what the Board of Health is going to recommend.
If I can speak here, there's a couple things. One, a preliminary plan, I hate to say this, but it's not binding on anybody. You can get approved preliminary plan, they submit a definitive plan that looks just like it, but there's issues with it, and you deny the definitive plan because it fails to conform, let's say, with stormwater or some other regulations. You approve preliminary plan, and they look at it and said, we're going to do something different with that definitive plan and submit a significantly different definitive plan. That's perfectly acceptable. The idea of the preliminary plan is just to test the waters and see what are the issues out there that should be addressed, should be incorporated into a definitive plan if they wish to proceed in the same direction. Regarding the issue of Board of Health, that's really interesting when getting a definitive plan. They have to get approved from the Board of Health for definitive, because the planning board is pretty much locked into the Board of Health decision when it gets to definitive plan. If the Board of Health denies it, the planning board really has to incorporate that into their action. It's almost like a veto in some ways. I've had that on a couple of projects on a previous job. One was really interesting. Planning board was going to approve, and Board of Health was denying, and Town Council advised Board of Health on how to go through the process. But so that's important to remember, is that the Board of Health and Planning Board are equal parties in effect at the definitive, but with Board of Health having a little bit more say because of the way the statute is written regarding the Planning Board incorporating or accepting the decision of the Board of Health. And they had to submit to the Board of Health for definitive, and Board of Health has to act on it and respond by certified mail within a certain period of time as well.
It also needs to be noted that it's an idea and it's a concept, okay? So what little we know from this plan right here, there's some commercial development, some mixed-use development, if you will. There's also been mention of affordable housing and an over 55 community with, a 2-bedroom home is not.
I haven't heard.
Not 3
they
or
said
4.
That tonight.
That's way out there. It wasn't. I mean, that could be part of the plan, but that's also in the master plan about promoting over 55 community and mixed-use development. So it's not totally off the wall to think that whatever may happen there may be detrimental to the entire area. It's just a matter of the scope of it and the size, which we'd get to weigh on in the end.
And very honestly, and we've seen this happen, I've seen it happen over decades. Developer comes in with a preliminary plan. This is their concept, how they want to develop it. They go through the definitive, and they're still intending to go that direction, and something happens to the market, something happens to their financing structure, something happens that somebody comes along and the place they want to do a 20-lot subdivision on parcel X, somebody comes along and says, I'd like to buy that so I can do half dozen large mansions. And the developer looks at it and says, financially, it's a better deal for us to accept that, given the market, than it is for us to proceed what we originally proposed.
Okay.
So there's a lot of things that can happen. That's the reason I would, again, encourage the board to focus on that this is a preliminary plan for those two big parcels and the dead-end road, 820-foot long road at this point in time, because what eventually happens when parcels 5 and 6, they get created, there's a host of variety of factors that could determine that that's beyond anybody's imagination at this point in time.
I ask a lot of these questions because I feel it's important to have it very clear, and I appreciate very much what you're saying. Therefore, if what you just said, something happens, market change, et cetera, it might be necessary that these developers come back and ask for a different kind of approval, if all we're doing tonight is this preliminary plan. Okay.
Mr. Johnson?
Again, Stephen Johnson, 20 Walcott. This is a very rich conversation that I've not heard at many planning boards, both by the consultant and the members of the board. Much has been said about the future possibilities and how attractive or otherwise they might be that are not on the table tonight. So thank you. That was a very good summary. I have a question. Is it correct that by approving the plan in front of you, taking the action that is proposed, you would allow it would establish new legal lots which could be separately conveyed?
No.
Not legal lots.
If I can just explain, a preliminary plan approval does not divide property.
Body?
It does not divide property. They could not take a preliminary plan and record it in the registry and create new lots with that. That would require a definitive plan to be submitted. Planning board approved that definitive plan. They go through the necessary steps for endorsement, which includes typically a performance guarantee, et cetera. And then they could record that, and then they would create 2 new parcels. Simply approving preliminary plan does not create divided property. And just, I believe on the 4 lots up front, they probably would do A&R plans for those.
Most likely, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Ian? No?
No, thanks.
Cindy? Paul?
I think from a public standpoint, I think there's a lot of concerns about the future redevelopment of this area. And rest assured, they have probably 8,000 pages of regulations they have to go through. So it's not like they have a broad brush approval tonight to go forward. So it's a very preliminary approval process that they're going through, so.
All right. Guess we've wrapped up the question and answer period here. I'm going to call now and ask for the board, if they don't need any further information, I'm going to call for a vote for this plan.
Do we need to close the?
This is a public meeting, not a hearing. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the preliminary subdivision plan presented by New City Properties, sheets S1, L3, and there was another one,
L1.
L1?
1.0, yes.
So S 1.0, L 3.1, L 3.0.
L 1.0 and 3.0.
3.0.
Did you get those? He's doing the minutes. S.1, L.1, and L.3. Is that right?
L 3.0.
3.0.
Yeah, that's what I had.
Point 1, 3.0. Do I have a motion?
I would suggest make that subject to conditions.
Subject to your,
The comments from the Board of Health, from
you
DPW.
have those comments that I sent you from
There's my
Board of
comments.
Health and the Highway Department and Richard Harris.
We do.
Just point of clarification, I mean, those comments, what weight do they have now?
They don't, but the idea is that they should be addressed as part of the definitive plan submittal. It's more advisory than anything else.
Yeah, it's advising down the road.
Right, but what if we have different ideas as board members, then, not so much different, but forget it, I'm not going down that road. I think we're good. We're good. We're good.
Okay.
I'm circling my mind.
Okay,
And I would also note that the board has not acted on the waiver request on the sidewalk, but will consider that in the definitive plan stage.
I guess that was my biggest concern, was the sidewalk discussion.
no, that's down definitive road.
Yeah.
So do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the preliminary subdivision plan as called out on sheets, you said S1,
S 1.0, S, L
L1,
3.0,
yeah, L 3.0 and L
3.1,
No,
3.1.
1.0.
1.0, I'm sorry.
With the conditions that, no, with the comments that have been made by town departments need to be addressed as part of the definitive.
And our consultant.
And you also want to add the part about the sidewalks not being considered.
I'm sorry, say that again?
And would you also like to add the part of the sidewalk not being considered as part of this preliminary plan?
Well, I think that's a discussion to be had during the definitive.
Yeah, it's only,
Yes,
it's only
it'll be addressed during the definitive.
during the
plan.
definitive, right.
We're trying to type up exactly what we are capturing here.
So Paul's made the motion. Do I have a second? I'll second it. Motion's been made and seconded. Any other further discussion? All in favor? Dan?
Aye.
Cindy?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Myself, aye. 400. Plan is approved.
And then you need to file a decision with the town clerk within the next, I don't know how many days you have left.
On the application.
That's 45 days from the date of the filing of the application.
Will do. All set?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good luck, gentlemen. Mark, do you want any of these back? Do you want any of these back?
Yeah, you got it, sure, I'll take whatever you don't want.
My office
As long as you have one for the file, that's all you need.
My daughter might like to draw.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.